قالوا يا أبانا ما لك لا تأمنا على يوسف وإنا له لناصحون أرسله معنا غدا يرتع ويلعب وإنا له لحافظون الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على النبي المصطفى المجتبى. My beloved brothers and sisters, in the last episode we talked about how they wanted to kill Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, and this all originated from the hasad, the envy that they had towards their brother. And right at the end of the verse we mentioned how they uttered the statement وَتَكُونُ مِن بَعْدِهِ قَوْمًا صَالِحِينَ. And after we are done with killing him or getting rid of him, we will all become righteous. And this is what I want to stand over in this episode. How common is it, my brothers and my sisters, that we tell ourselves, let me carry out this sin, and then the door of repentance is open, thinking that we can maybe deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am not referring to the one who the shaitan gets the better of and then he repents. And we're talking about the person who thinks he can deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the back of his mind he's telling himself, I've got time, let me enjoy myself. YOLO, you only live once. I'm still young, I've still got my whole life ahead of my brothers and my sisters. How many people have we come across who kept on saying to themselves, I shall and I will. He went to sleep and he never woke up. How many, my brothers and my sisters? Just myself, the amount of people that I've personally come across. Maybe perhaps they came back from Umrah, they came back from Hajj, they just left the month of Ramadan in a good state, thinking to themselves, I've done so much good work, let me just enjoy myself. And I always say this every single Eid, right? Telling yourself that I've got a day to enjoy myself, right? Let me go and sin. Every single Eid I hear about someone who died with alcohol in his mouth. Someone, my brothers and my sisters, who died with maybe drugs in his pouch, sitting in a hotel room with a lady that he shouldn't have been with. Right? I remember, subhanAllah, I believe it was maybe 2 Eids ago, I said this, and then some people tried to make a mockery of me mentioning this, right? And then before even 24 hours went by, we heard that some brothers in a car crash, right? Those balloons, subhanAllah, that they were inhaling in, right? Every single Eid, my brothers and my sisters, I hear about someone who died in this state. Right? Let me just do this sin. وَتَكُونُ مِن بَعْدِهِ قَوْمًا صَالِحِينَ. And then after that, you'll all become righteous. As if we have a guarantee, my brothers and my sisters, to live till tomorrow. Right? What guarantee do we have? We have been told, إِذَا أَصْبَحْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الْمَسَاءَ فَإِذَا أَمْسَيْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الصَّبَاحِ. Right? When you wake up in the morning, then do not wait for the night. And once you enter into the night, do not wait for the morning, right? We are travelers, right? The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us to live our lives like that. كُن فِي الدُّنْيَا كَأَنَّكَ غَرِيبٌ وَعَابِرْ سَبِيلٌ, right? Be in this dunya as if you're a stranger or someone who's traveling, right? How do we behave and what's our attitude on our travels, my brothers and my sisters? How do we carry ourselves? Right? We're on our toes, we're trying to get from one place to another, we're in a hurry, right? This is the beautiful lie. The beautiful lie, also known as the dunya, a little bit of enjoyment at the expense of our hereafter, my brothers and my sisters. So we really, really need to think about how we want to depart from this world, my brothers and my sisters. We hear and see a lot the good ending of one, maybe perhaps holding a mushaf, the same way I'm holding it. You see me, he's holding the mushaf, and then he passes away. These videos and these images, they do the rounds on WhatsApp. Not so long ago, we saw that Indonesian lady who passed away, and she was reciting the Quran. And on the other hand, my brothers and my sisters, we hear all of these terrifying stories of someone who passed away, right? And the last thing they were doing, that which is displeasing to Allah Azza wa Jal, right? And to make things even worse, with the emergence of social media, we publicize the evil and the filth that we might be engaging in. And then our parents and our loved ones, they have to pick up the pieces after we have departed from this world. And again, not so long ago, right, I came across a situation where a sister, right, she had her images on Instagram and on TikTok, right, where she was not dressed appropriately, right? And then from what I saw, that the family was begging these social media platforms to take down these images because she passed away. However, it's very difficult because you don't have the passwords. You don't have access to these accounts. And these sins are going to continue even after you have departed from this world. We hear a lot about the sadaqatun jariyah, the continuous charity and the continuous reward, right, after having left behind a legacy. There's also something called athamun jariyah, sins that will continue because of something that you left behind, which is still being accessed. How is it that you want to depart from this world, my brothers and my sisters? Right? These are some of the statements of the great scholars of the past who mentioned to us about individuals that they came across and what they were doing right before they departed from this world. Right? You know, my brothers and my sisters, every single one of us is able to utter the shahada now, right? Saying La ilaha illallah shouldn't be much trouble. And we know the famous hadith when the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "Man kana akhiru kalamihi la ilaha illallah dakhal al-jannah." Whoever's last statement is La ilaha illallah, he will enter into al-jannah. It's easier said than done. Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullahi alayhi, in his wonderful kitab Al-Jawab al-Kafi, an immense book, my brothers and my sisters, that speaks about the spiritual disease and its cure, also known as ad-da'u wad-dawa. He says, أن أحد الناس قيل له وهو في سياق الموت. Right? There was an individual who was on his deathbed. It was said to him, say La ilaha illallah, utter the shahada. You know what his response was, my brothers and my sisters? وما يغني عني وما أعلم أني صليت لله صلاة وما يغني عني وما أعلم أني صليت لله صلاة ولم يقلها. He's on his deathbed, my brothers and my sisters. As I mentioned, it's easier said than done, right? He's being asked to say La ilaha illallah, laqinu mawtakum la ilaha illallah. You do the talqeen for that individual on his deathbed by trying to get him to say La ilaha illallah. His response was, how is this going to benefit me when I've never ever prayed a single prayer? He never uttered the shahada, and that's how he passed away. That was the last thing that came out of his mouth. Another example, my brothers and my sisters, when quoting one of the great scholars of the past called Abdul Aziz ibn Abi Rawad, he was once present at someone's bedside. They were trying to get him to say La ilaha illallah, فقال في آخر ما قال, and the last thing that came out of his mouth was هو كافر بما تقول. Like I said, it's easier said than done. They're trying to get him to say La ilaha illallah. The man on his deathbed, you know what his response was? He is indeed a disbeliever in that which you say. And that's how he died. Right? So Abdul Aziz ibn Abi Rawad did some digging up to just see what kind of lifestyle he lived. And he came to realize that he was a mudminul khamar. He was an alcoholic. May Allah protect us from that. Another example is that which Imam al-Dhahabi rahmatullahi alayhi mentioned about an individual who used to sit and hang around those who used to drink alcohol. Right? On his deathbed, they tried to get him to say La ilaha illallah. What do you think his response was? Right? He never used to do the act himself, but he used to hang around with them. Right? They tried to get him to say La ilaha illallah. His response was Ishrab wasqini. drink and pour for me. Right? Subhanallah. He used to hang around with them. You may say, I'm just hanging around. Just today I was told about a brother who was thrown into prison. He was doing his A-levels. One of the brothers who was in prison with him said, simply because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, he ended up getting a 5-year sentence, right? This is, my brothers and my sisters, right, an example for us to take heed from. Another example is that which Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullahi alayhi mentioned about a person who used to love music and he used to always hum, right? He used to sing. When he was on his deathbed, they tried to get him to say La ilaha illallah, right? And I think it's not rocket science now to figure out what the last thing that came out of his mouth was. And I'm going to mention exactly what Ibn al-Qayyim said. After being asked to say La ilaha illallah, his response was Tentata, tenta. Tentata, tenta. Right? I mentioned this once in a Friday khutbah in Manchester. One of these Somali uncles came up to me and he said, when you mentioned this story, it reminded me of something that I personally witnessed when I went back home to Somalia. When I was there, there was a lady who was on her deathbed. And every time they tried to get her to say La ilaha illallah, she would move her face to the left and then she would start humming. Who was she? She was the one that would be invited over to weddings and to house parties to start singing for the attendees, right? If you thought that all of these incidents that I just mentioned are out of touch with reality, then my brothers and my sisters, this is something that happened in most recent times, right? We've heard many, many stories of people dying in front of a pub, inside of a club. In a car crash, and the last thing they were blasting was the songs of one of these rappers, right? And last but not least, my brothers and my sisters, something that Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullahi alayhi also mentioned. He said, أخبرني بعض التجار. Some businessmen, they told me, عن قرابة له أنه احتضر وهو عنده. One of the relatives of this individual who's telling him was on his deathbed and they tried to get him to say La ilaha illallah. His response was, هذه القطعة رخيصة. This is a cheap product. وهذا مشتر جيد. And this one is a very good customer. It's the last thing that came out of his mouth. You may ask the question, but isn't that something that is halal though? Right? To buy and sell. Right? My brothers and my sisters, when it becomes overly excessive, and this is what you're engaging in all the time, forgetting about what you have been created for, right? It's reached a point where this is your number one priority, Allah is secondary in your life. You begin to prioritize the glitters and the glamours of this world over the obligations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And because of that, it may well be that you end up dying in this way, right? There's no harm in buying and selling and doing that which is going to help you fulfill your obligations, your duties for your family. But remember, my brothers and my sisters, right? Every single one of us is going to depart from this world. We always hear about this hadith. إِنَّ الرَّجُلَ لَيَعْمَلُ بِعَمَلِ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ. One keeps doing the actions of the people of Jannah until between him and entering into Al-Jannah is the length of a handspan. Right? فَيَعْمَلُ بِعَمَلِ أَهْلِ النَّارِ. He does the actions of the people of the hellfire and then he enters into it. Think about it. You're going to die at the age of 61 and for 60 years you've been doing righteous deeds. How is it that he ends up dying in that way? Right? And subhanallah, right? Why would Allah Azza wa Jalla allow him to die in this way? Ibn Rajab, he mentions the dasisatin fi qalbi, because of a disease that he has in his heart. And this is the disease that we were talking about. Let me do this in وَتَكُونُ مِن بَعْدِهِ قَوْمًا صَالِحِينَ. After that we will all become righteous, right? Repent before it's too late. May Allah Azza wa Jalla bless you all. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. No one on the face of this earth is more convenient or more befitting as a spouse for you. This is how you're thinking. You try everything in your power to acquire the other half, but it just doesn't seem to be happening. And then you're left heartbroken. To make things even more worse, your best friend comes along and he snatches her from under your nose.
إذ قال يوسف لأبيه يا أبت إني رأيت 11 كوكبا والشمس والقمر